We often hear that hundreds of thousands, and now probably even millions of residents are leaving California, New York, or Noise. Moreover, they're fleeing. They're leaving, they're fleeing. It's not those who get freebies who are leaving, but those whose earnings are being taken away to pay for those very same freebies. So the number of people who earn and pay bureaucrats and benefit recipients is decreasing. But these same states, in order not to lose seats in Congress, bring in illegals. That means the number of seats in Congress depends on the population, even it's based on the number. That's how it's written in the Constitution, so there's really nothing that can be done about it. But these same states also increase their population because what they get from the federal government depends on it proportionally, and then it goes back to the states. So the illegals they bring in, if they pay into the budget at all, they pay about 6 or 7 times less than what they take out of it. I've already given these numbers with all the sources, so I won't do it again. If someone is interested, find about a week or 10 days and he will give it. So if previously in California there were, for example, 49% working and 51% receiving, then after the departure of workers and the arrival of a new wave of illegals, those receiving handouts, it became 40% working and 60% what is called the base of the Democratic Party. We'll talk about this, but I'll start with something that struck me even more. Entire cities and counties want to get out from under the control of the Democrats, and where is a regular person supposed to go? In Russia, there was nowhere to go, and those ones steal, and these ones steal too. So in the United States, well, they steal, but in different ways. Still, yes. Everyone wants to leave the Democratic states and move to the states governed by Republicans.
After many years of dissatisfaction with the policies coming from Portland, more than a third of Oregon's counties voted to secede. Specifically, they voted to leave Oregon and join the growing state of Idaho. Democracy.
A third of Oregon's counties want to leave the state. Well, we have a state. A state is a government, the state of Oregon. We have a union of 50 states. And join their neighbors in the state of Idaho. So, if Oregon is basically a union of ultra-leftists, right? Then Idaho, I would say, well, is a union of ultra-rightists.
This is called the Greater Idaho Movement. Out of 36 counties in Oregon, 13 have already voted to secede. Because mostly, the residents of these counties feel that their values are no longer represented by the state legislature, which, as you might guess, is dominated by extremely liberal politicians from Portland. And what's really interesting about this movement is that it might actually succeed. Like other liberal blue states, most Oregon counties are conservative, similar to New York, California, and Illinois. So for example, if we look at the 2024 election results map by county, we'll see that most counties in Oregon voted for Trump, while a minority of densely populated counties voted for Harris. This same discrepancy also shows up in the state legislature. Because even though large geographic areas of the state vote Republican, both the state Senate and the state Assembly are under significant Democratic control. So to understand the desire to secede, just put yourself in the shoes of a farmer or rancher living somewhere in rural Oregon, 5 hours away from Portland. Realistically, you have almost nothing in common politically with the people of Portland. Even though politicians from Portland make real decisions that affect your life, you may not support their policies, not support their positions, not support what they do with your taxes. But basically, no matter what you do, the geography and demographics of the state are such that your voice in the eastern part of the state will simply never be heard, at least in elections. And that's really the case both in the Oregon State Senate and in the Oregon State Assembly. Currently, the Democrats have a supermajority, which means that Democrats can pass any laws without needing bipartisan support or compromise. They can push it through. And this is where the Greater Idaho Movement comes in with its plan to join the eastern counties of Oregon to the very conservative state of Idaho. As you can see on the map on your screen, this would actually move the Idaho border several hundred miles to the west. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, this movement is really gaining momentum. More and more counties in eastern Oregon are joining. To date, 13 different counties have approved various measures that require local authorities to start the process of separating from the state.
As you can imagine, the process of separation is very complicated and, of course, painful. But the people in Oregon outside the big cities are sure that they want to separate and are demanding this separation. They are infuriated by school textbooks that say America is a terrible country with a nightmarish history, that it was built on slavery and is still incredibly racist. They don't really like that men are allowed to enter women's locker rooms and participate in women's sports. They're angry about the taxes they pay, which are then used for gender reassignment surgeries. For kids or adults, it doesn't matter. They want to cut all ties with the left and unite with a state that shares their morals, their views, their attitude toward God. The return of firearms to family values.
Quote, the Greater Idaho movement won non-binding elections in 13 districts. Supporters hold meetings, sell hats and t-shirts, and put up billboards with messages like Free Eastern Oregon.
Again, these are not simple and possibly very long-term goals. But right now, I'm not talking about the outcome, but about intentions, about desires. Let's look at California. From 2010, over 10 years that is, until the end of 2019, 6.2 million people left and arrived. Well, do you think the same number? No, 4.9 million. So even if these were just equivalent so-called producers, a difference of 1.3 million over a decade is a huge number. But usually more people used to come to California than leave. I think its population reached 40 million. So from 2023, so from 2023 I told you, so from 2010 to 2019, but starting from 2023 it was just an exodus. In 2 years, 1.5 million people left, not 4 years as I first thought. But 934,000 migrants entered. Migrants are illegal immigrants who, as we've said, don't help the budget or economy and instead lower the standard of living. Where are they going? So they're fleeing, they're running away. Mainly to Texas and Florida, which are Republican states, and also to nearby states like Nevada and Arizona that are less liberal than California. Over the past 10 years, 1.5 million residents have fled New York. So it's a comparable number, yes, to where people are moving to Florida, Texas, and neighboring states that are less liberal than New York. So again and again and again, the main movement is to Texas and Florida. And the main reasons are that economic life improves as soon as you move, socially as well. Schools do not teach children unnatural concepts or things. Real estate is affordable and there's less crime. And there isn't a heated and intolerant political atmosphere, which is mostly created by the left, well, the right too, if they're crazy, so to speak. Actually, as it turned out, for some reason, I always thought there were more crazies on the left side. They're more emotional. We actually need to talk about this a little bit too. I might add a couple of words if I have any thoughts. So, for example, California and New York have some of the highest income taxes in the United States, while in Texas and Florida, the tax is not lower. It's not that it's lower than in California and New York. There is no income tax there. That's right, there isn't. It turns out that officials can live without it. The average house price in Texas, over there, it's approximately a little more than half the average cost of a house in California. Because of taxes and other restrictions, large companies are leaving Democratic states and moving to Republican states. Young, well-earning people who care about jobs, quality of life, and opportunities to build wealth are especially active in moving. In Democratic states, you're robbed more seriously. In Republican states, you're also robbed, but less. And they create better conditions, and it's hard for Democrats to create that so-called initial capital to start your own business, come up with something, or do anything at all. And where do New York, Washington, California, Massachusetts, and Oregon spend the money taken from producers? Go ahead, take 3 guesses.
In this country, 42 million people need food stamps every week. We intentionally say people instead of Americans because most of those who receive food stamps aren't even from this country. 45% of Afghan immigrants receive food stamps, 42% of Somali immigrants, 34% of all immigrants from Iraq, 23% of Haitians, and 59% of all illegals. And they receive food stamps, which means that most of the people receiving food stamps from the United States government and United States taxpayers aren't even Americans. Think about it. We only learned about it when the government shutdown began. But thanks to the Democrats, we can confirm today that millions of Joe Biden's illegal immigrants, people who crossed the border when Joe was president, are now receiving food stamps from a program funded by hardworking American taxpayers.
So it seems that the Democrats' plan to lead hungry Americans into battle against the usurper Trump is falling apart again. If it turns out that most of the money for food, the assistance we pay to those in need, and we're constantly told they are in need, how dare you question it, actually goes to illegal migrants, that would cause such an explosion of outrage in America. But not against Trump, against the Democrat. Again, against the Democrat. So soon when we say thief, we'll mean a member of the Democratic Party of the United States of America. And when we say Democrat, of course, we'll mean a thief. And when we think about the future, let's hope there will be fewer of these thieves in power. Is there even a single aspect of life that the Democrats haven't ruined over the past, 25 years? I don't think there's a single one. I want to be happy and make others happy too. It's not just here in the United States that the left is ruining people's lives. It means that normal working people everywhere just want to get rid of them. Here's what's happening with our northern neighbor, Canada.
I would like Alberta to remain a part of Canada, but unfortunately, that's how it's been for a long time. Nothing will change, and especially with Kearney, it will become much more so.
Independence isn't about better representation or fairer treatment. It's full separation from Canada. Some called it Alberta's 1776 moment. Others called it a warning for Ottawa. In any case, one thing was clear. The province is no longer waiting for change. It's ready to make it happen. In this video, we reveal 10 reasons why this rally was unlike any Canada has seen and could be Alberta's first step towards separation.
Those who want to stay in Canada have gathered as many as 450,000 signatures, but the rest seem to want to become part of Trump's new United States of America. But the press in Canada is liberal fascist, just like ours, and stays silent as if nothing is happening.
Media silence and an ignored narrative. Would you think that a crowd of more than 12,000 people filling the Alberta legislature would make national headlines? If you turned on the television that day, you'd find nothing. No breaking news, no live reports, barely a whisper. Major channels like Canadian Broadcasting Corporation and Canadian Television, known for quickly covering even minor protests, remained silent. Global News flew a helicopter over but showed nothing. This isn't just lazy coverage, this is deliberate silence.
The Canadian leadership is in a panic, afraid that the people of Canada will find out that someone wants to secede. It's like in the Soviet Union. I remember in 71 or 72, suddenly there was this thing that you could leave. It turned out that everyone rushed to leave. Similar movements can arise in other places. And it all started with Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want, he said, then we will accept you. Canada, about 50,000 first state. The family was planted, it is sprouting. So it means, again, in 72, 71, 72 in the Soviet Union. How? Is it really possible to leave? Wow. So there's not a 100% chance you'll be institutionalized or shot there. They might let you go, though it's unlikely. I'll risk it.
The less the media talks about it, the more determined people become to speak out themselves. Independent journalists, YouTubers, and grassroots pages shared what mainstream media ignored. The movement is too big to hide and too powerful to stop. In a country that prides itself on freedom of speech and democratic values, this level of silence in the media should scare everyone, not just the people of Alberta. If 12,000 voices can be silenced so easily, what does that mean for the future of freedom of expression in Canada?
We, Canada, are one of the freest countries in the world. We stand for equality, for open dialogue, for everyone's right to have a voice. But, as it turns out, only if what they say is liked by the ruling junta, And if they don't like it, then you're on your own.
If there's one thing almost everyone at the rally agreed on, it's that Alberta is being drained and getting nothing in return. You kept hearing the same thing. We pay and they waste it. Albertans pay billions in taxes annually to the federal government through equalization payments, only to watch that money being used to block pipelines, restrict natural resource development, and fund provinces that actively oppose the initiative. It's not just unfair, it's outrageous. This economic anger is now becoming political action. Farmers, oil workers, small business owners, they all came with the same complaint. Ottawa is strangling Alberta's economy while pretending to help.
You hear that, Grabstvo? People want to leave Oregon for Iowa. Businesses and manufacturers from Democratic states are moving to Republican ones, and the province of Alberta dreams of breaking free from Canada's embrace. Everyone is saying the same thing. You're robbing us, giving some of the money to those who will vote for you, whether they need it or not. It doesn't matter, as long as they run to vote for you. And the rest? Why? Are they afraid to vote? Because they're afraid of losing their handouts. That's clear, right? And the remaining funds you spend on projects that are absolutely unnecessary for us, the ones who actually pay this money, completely unnecessary. We think, gentlemen, that you are no better than the monarchs of the past. In fact, you are worse because you also sow discord between us and our children. As Ayn Rand once wrote in her immortal Atlas Shrugged, well, sometimes it's translated as Atlas Shrugged, but I think Atlant would be more accurate. Yes, creators, producers, makers of value leave the places where they are not allowed to develop, leaving behind the parasites. Well, those are the ones who get handouts, and the looters, those who rob them and share with the parasites. So, leaving them alone so they either fight among themselves like spiders in a jar and devour each other, or learn to become useful members of society. That is, they learn to produce goods instead of taking, dividing, and exploiting the labor, intelligence, and abilities of others. We are witnessing firsthand how Orent's brilliant prediction is coming true. She is Elisa Zinovievna Rosenbaum, who came from Petersburg to America in 1926. By the way, before that, she studied at St. Petersburg University together with my grandmother, and she discovered that if you turn Soviet collectivist philosophy upside down, you get individualism, entrepreneurship, and profit as the measure of a product's value. Elisa turned out to be a born philosopher and teacher. The priority of the individual, the rationality of the mind, the right to personal happiness, and the right to personal property. That is a complete anti-Marx, an absolute 100% anti-Marx, because Marx is the complete absence of personal private property. Of course, she drew a lot from von Mises, from Bastiat, from Hayek, from the great Thomas Paine, and she gave a lot to the next titan of the philosophy of capitalism, Andrei Joseph Galambus, who, by the way, also arrived in 1926, but not from St. Petersburg, but from Budapest, that is, from the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The year 1926 turned out to be uneventful for America and surprisingly successful. There were two such catches. Alicia, well, Ayn Rand started writing articles and philosophical novels. And Joseph, that is Joseph Andreas, who was the first in the world to establish social sciences. Being an outstanding mathematician and astrophysicist, he turned social science into a real science with postulates, theorems, theories, and the scientific method of verification. By the way, if you click below in the description on my book Capitalism 101 for free, ladies and gentlemen, you will get it, so to speak, as a download to your computer, plus access to the video project. It's exactly about what Ayn Rand, Mises, and Galambus wrote and did to say. And of course, the great Frederick Bastiat with his immortal work, What is Seen and What is Not Seen, which absolutely must be taught in all schools of the Western world as a textbook for developing critical thinking. Absolutely necessary. All right, I got carried away with philosophy again. Back to our fellow citizens fleeing from socialism. People usually run away from what they consider bad and towards what they consider good, or at least better. To leave home, to leave everything familiar, your belongings, your friends, your job, your whole circle of familiar things, gentlemen. Even the waiter at your favorite restaurant. Even the plumber, you know who to call, but in a new place you don't know anyone, and you can give him the keys to your house, because he's already been there 100 times. It's hard to leave all of that behind, and there must be something really repulsive or something really enticing to break away from it. So how many value creators move from Florida to California, those kinds of people, and how many of them are there? Huh? Those people who feed and provide for this country, are they running from Texas to New York? Maybe someone is, but not in any noticeable way. You can check those trucks that transport furniture and things like that. As they say, they have a huge number of orders from New York to Texas, and they don't know what to do. They have to drive empty trucks back from Texas to New York. So, probably not 0 people are moving, but it's pretty close to that number. How much robbery is there in the red states? We have a red state, which means Republican, and they want to join the blue ones, that is, the Democratic states. 0, no matter how you say it. 0, nil, zilch, bile, zelch, ephes. That's in Hebrew, right? How many United states want to leave and join Canada? 0. How many Americans want to run away to Venezuela? Well, maybe 1 wants to. Even those who are in prison don't want to. That's it. How many people want to leave the United States and run away to Haiti or to Sudan or maybe to Somalia? How many Somalis want to move back to Somalia? Again, I want to say 0. I think no one. Why? Because everyone wants to live where they feel comfortable. Subtitle editor. And the question arises, why does half of the United States population vote for Democrats if they themselves later want to move from Democratic states to Republican ones? I don't have an explanation, to be honest. I have some guesses to choose from, but none of them. I can't just point at it and say that's it. And the first one, yes, but 50% of the United States population are absolute idiots, obviously. This is the first explanation. They can be good doctors, chefs, or even teachers. Possible explanation B. They belong to the category of people whose sensations are more important than reason's conclusions. As soon as a sensation, emotion, or feeling takes over, no matter the name, their mind shuts down, and you simply can't do anything with logic, arguments, or facts, nothing. If something goes against their feelings, it's impossible to break through. Well, according to Elisa Zinovna Rosenbaum, also known as Ayn Rand, 50% of the population is divided into 2 categories. I don't know if they're equal, but 2 categories: marauders and parasites. I still really hope that Aunt Elisa is wrong. To be continued. Don't forget to hit the bell. Please, ladies and gentlemen, if possible, we would appreciate your donation or contribution. See you next time. See you soon.